Good evening, dear friends, and welcome back to Snug as a Bug. I'm Adam, and tonight we're embarking on a journey through the mystical legends of the new year. These enchanting tales will weave together the magic of time, the power of belief, and the courage it takes to embrace new beginning. Let yourself sink into your bed, releasing the weight of the day with a deep, calming breath in and out. Feel yourself becoming lighter, more at ease, and ready to explore these timeless stories that have shaped the turning of the years. Tonight, our first tale introduces the goddess of time, Chronos' daughter, who weaves the threads of past, present, and future as each year transitions. Her story reminds us of the delicate balance of life and the enduring power of love that can mend even the most fragile of threads. Next, we will explore the Wishing Well of Midnight, a hidden European legend that tells of a magical well that appears only at the stroke of midnight. It grants the deepest desires of those brave enough to find it, offering a lesson in courage and the beauty of hope. As you listen, let these stories carry you into a place of peace, where time itself seems to pause, and the gentle whispers of the past, present, and future guide you into a deep and restful sleep. Before we begin, let's take a moment to relax and unwind fully. Gently close your eyes and feel your body sink deeper into your bed, supported and at ease. Take a slow, deep breath in and exhale, letting go of any tension. With each breath, feel yourself becoming lighter, quieter, and calmer. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast, glowing horizon. Before you stretches the endless fabric of time, shimmering with the promise of new beginnings. The air hums softly with ancient energy, and the stars above twinkle with quiet wisdom. Let yourself be carried by this serene current, ready to explore the mystical legends of the new year. Now, dear traveler, you are ready. Let the stories begin, and let the magic of the new year guide you into the most peaceful sleep. The Goddess of Time. In the farthest reaches of the cosmos, beyond mortal sight or comprehension, lay the ethereal loom, a device older than stars, cradled in a chamber of swirling light and shadow. This loom was vast, its threads stretching endlessly into the horizon, each strand a life, a moment, a story that interwove to form the great tapestry of existence. The chamber itself was an otherworldly haven, its walls made of crystalline light that shimmered with the colors of dawn and dusk. Celestial winds whispered through the space, carrying the soft hum of eternity itself. Calidora, daughter of Chronos and the goddess of time, stood at the loom, her hands moving with an elegance born of millennia of practice. Her touch was impossibly delicate, her fingers gliding over threads that vibrated faintly with the energy of life. The golden strands of the past were warm to the touch, resonating with the echoes of memories long lived. The silver threads of the present were vibrant, pulsating as though alive, while the iridescent wisps of the future seemed almost fragile, shifting unpredictably under her gaze. This was her domain, her eternal purpose, to weave the fabric of time, ensuring the balance of existence. Every thread she guided carried within it the essence of a mortal life, its joys and sorrows, triumphs and failures, blending seamlessly into the grand design. Each pattern she created was unique, a testament to the infinite complexity of the cosmos. Yet despite the beauty of her work, a weight lingered in her heart, an unshakable loneliness that came from being bound to this eternal task. Calidora often found herself gazing beyond the crystalline walls of her chamber, her luminous eyes fixed on the world of mortals. She watched as they celebrated the passage of time, marking each year's end with laughter, music, and the promise of new beginnings. It fascinated her, this mortal reverence for something she considered so ordinary. To them, time was fleeting, a precious resource to be cherished. To her, it was an infinite river, flowing endlessly, unyielding and unchanging. Her longing to understand the mortal experience grew with each passing year. What was it like to feel the warmth of the sun on one's skin, to hear the laughter of loved ones, or to taste the sweetness of hope? Mortals, she thought, were both cursed and blessed by their ephemeral nature. Their lives were but sparks in the vast darkness, yet it was their brevity that made each moment shine so brightly. As her thoughts lingered on these questions, a tremor ran through the loom. It was subtle at first, a faint vibration that barely disturbed the delicate threads. But then it grew stronger, and Calidora's attention snapped back to her work. Her gaze fell upon a single thread, its golden glow flickering like a dying ember. It was fraying, its once strong weave unraveling with alarming speed. "Another thread at risk," she murmured, her voice soft but resolute. She traced the thread with her fingers, her divine senses unraveling the story it held. It belonged to a mortal, a young boy whose life was intricately tied to that of his ailing mother. The thread pulsed faintly with the boy's desperate love and fear, his prayers rising like fragile whispers through the fabric of time. Calidora's heart ached as she felt the weight of the boy's emotions. She knew she could not intervene lightly, for altering the tapestry carried consequences that rippled through existence. Yet something about this thread, this prayer, resonated deeply within her. For the first time in an age, she made a decision that defied her eternal role. She would answer his call. On Earth, the final hours of the year unfolded with their usual mix of revelry and reflection. Streets were alive with celebrations, the air filled with the sounds of laughter, music, and the occasional burst of fireworks. Yet amidst this joyous cacophony, a single voice rose above the noise, a child's prayer carried on the winds of the midnight hour. "Goddess of time," the boy whispered, his breath visible in the frosty air. He knelt beneath an ancient oak tree on the outskirts of his village, clutching a fraying scarf as he looked up at the star-speckled sky. "If you can hear me, please help my mother. She's sick, and I want her to see another year. Please, she's all I have." The boy's words were fragile, yet unwavering, his small hands trembling as he clutched the edges of his scarf tighter, his voice cracked with emotion, the weight of his fear pressing down on his small shoulders. Yet there was also a spark of hope in his eyes, a flicker of belief that his plea might be heard. High above, in her celestial chamber, Calidora felt the boy's words pierce the barriers of time and space. Mortal prayers seldom reached her, for she was not a goddess who typically intervened in human affairs. Yet this prayer, filled with such raw love and desperation, resonated with a power she could not ignore. It tugged at the fraying thread in her loom, demanding her attention. Curiosity and compassion mingled within her as she turned her gaze toward Earth. Her vision pierced the veils of clouds and time, settling on the small figure kneeling beneath the oak tree. She saw the boy's trembling form, the determination in his eyes despite the chill of the winter night. His love for his mother was a beacon, shining brightly amidst the darkness of his fear. Moved beyond reason, Calidora descended from her celestial chamber, Her form shimmered as she took on a mortal guise, her radiant presence cloaked in fabrics of shimmering starlight that trailed behind her like a comet's tail. The air grew still as she appeared before the boy, her feet barely brushing the snow-covered ground. "Why do you call upon me, child of earth?" she asked, her voice a harmonious blend of power and gentleness. The boy's eyes widened, his breath catching in his throat. He had not truly expected an answer, let alone the appearance of the goddess herself. Yet, as he looked into her luminous eyes, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. "You're the goddess of time, aren't you?" he said, his voice trembling but steady. "My mother says the new year is your gift to us. Please, can you make her better? She's all I have."
Calidora's expression softened, her heart aching at the boy's sincerity. She knelt before him, her luminous form casting a gentle glow upon the snow. "Time is not so easily altered," she said, her voice tinged with both sorrow and determination. "But your love for your mother has reached me, and for that, I will try."
Calidora extended her glowing hand, and a golden thread began to materialize from the ether. It was faint and flickering, its light dimmed by the weight of time and strain. The thread hovered between them, its intricate weave vibrating softly as if it carried the boy's emotions within it. He gasped, his small hands instinctively reaching toward it, but he stopped just short of touching, uncertain if he was worthy of such a thing. "This," Calidora explained, her voice calm but solemn, "is the thread of your mother's life. It is tied to yours, intertwined in a way that few mortals ever realize. Each strand represents a moment, a choice, a memory. The brighter sections hold joy and triumph. The darker portions carry sorrow and pain. Together, they form the essence of her time." The boy's wide eyes reflected the thread's faint glow. "It's beautiful," he whispered, but then his gaze fell on the frayed edges near the end of the strand. They hung loosely, threatening to unravel entirely. Is that because of her illness?" His voice wavered, the weight of the question pressing against his young shoulders. Calidora nodded gently, her expression unreadable, yet filled with a quiet compassion. "Your mother's thread is fraying," she said. "Her time grows fragile, as all threads eventually do. The illness has placed strain upon her, and if left untended, her journey will reach its natural end." She paused, letting the gravity of her words sink in. But threads, like lives, can sometimes be mended if the right choices are made. The boy clenched his fists, his jaw tightening as tears threatened to spill. "I'll do anything," he said, his voice small but firm. "Just tell me what I need to do. Please. She's everything to me." Calidora studied him for a long moment, her luminous eyes searching his face. She saw the determination burning within him, the unyielding love that gave his plea such strength. "Very well," she said, her tone softening. "But know this, what you ask of me is not without consequence. To repair the fraying thread, we must journey beyond the boundaries of mortal understanding. You will face trials that will test your heart and spirit. Are you certain you are ready?"
The boy nodded without hesitation. "For my mother, I'll face anything."
Calidora's lips curved into the faintest smile, a rare expression of approval. "Then we must begin." She rose gracefully, the golden thread still floating in the air between them. With a wave of her hand, the space around them began to shift and shimmer, the snow and trees dissolving into a swirling vortex of light and shadow. The boy clutched her hand tightly as the ground beneath his feet disappeared, replaced by an endless expanse of glowing mist. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice trembling despite his resolve. "We are traveling to the plane of the present," Calidora replied, her tone steady and reassuring. "It is a realm where every moment exists simultaneously, preserved in perfect harmony. It is there that we will find what is needed to mend your mother's thread." The boy nodded, though his grip on her hand tightened as the swirling light grew brighter. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced, a mixture of weightlessness and overwhelming energy, as though the universe itself was folding and unfolding around them. When the light finally subsided, they found themselves standing on the banks of a vast, luminous river. The water sparkled like liquid starlight, its surface rippling gently, as if moved by an unseen breeze. Each droplet within it contained a perfect moment, a tiny fragment of time frozen in exquisite detail. The boy could see scenes playing out within the droplets, people laughing, crying, embracing, and dreaming. It was mesmerizing and overwhelming all at once. "This is the river of the present," Calidora explained, her voice reverent. "It holds every moment that has ever existed or will ever exist within the flow of time. To save your mother, you must find the droplet that contains her happiest memory. That memory will act as an anchor, strengthening her thread and giving her the resilience to face the future." The boy stared at the river, his awe giving way to uncertainty. "How will I know which one is hers? There are so many. It's impossible."
Calidora knelt beside him, her presence radiant and calming. "You carry the answer within you," she said. "The bond between you and your mother is unbreakable. Trust that bond to guide you. Let your heart lead the way."
The boy took a deep breath, his small hands trembling as he stepped closer to the river. The luminous liquid lapped gently at his feet, cool and soothing like a soft breeze on a summer night. He reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing the surface. Instantly, a cascade of images flooded his mind, memories not his own, moments from lives he had never lived. Each droplet he touched revealed a new story, a glimpse into the infinite tapestry of existence. He began to search in earnest, his hands skimming the surface of the river as he focused on the bond he shared with his mother. He saw flashes of her life, her laughter, as she played in a sunlit meadow as a child, the determination in her eyes as she worked tirelessly to provide for him, the quiet strength she carried even in the face of her illness. Each memory was beautiful, but none felt quite right. As the minutes stretched into hours, doubt began to creep into his heart. The river's current seemed to grow stronger, its endless expanse more daunting with every passing moment. "I can't do it," he said, his voice trembling. "There are too many memories. I'll never find the right one." Calidora placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, her touch warm and steady. "Do not let fear cloud your heart," she said. "The memory you seek will call to you. Close your eyes and listen. Trust your heart to guide you." The boy closed his eyes, taking a deep breath as he tried to quiet the chaos in his mind. Slowly, he began to feel it, a faint warmth, like a thread of light tugging gently at his soul. It was subtle at first, but as he focused, the sensation grew stronger, pulling him toward a specific point in the river. He opened his eyes and followed the feeling, his hand dipping beneath the surface to retrieve a single droplet. "This one," he said, holding it up for Calidora to see. The droplet glowed softly in his palm, revealing a memory of his mother cradling him as a baby. Her voice, soft and melodic, sang a lullaby that wrapped them both in a cocoon of love and peace. The boy's eyes filled with tears as he watched the scene unfold, the depth of his mother's love washing over him like a warm embrace. Calidora smiled, her expression filled with quiet pride. "You have done well," she said. "This memory is the essence of your mother's love for you. It will be her strength in the days to come." Returning to the riverbank with the glowing droplet in his hand, the boy felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. His chest rose and fell with uneven breaths, his small body still trembling from the intensity of his search. The droplet was warm in his palm, radiating a gentle energy that filled him with a sense of hope and reassurance. Calidora watched him closely, her luminous eyes reflecting the soft glow of the droplet. She extended her hand toward him, and the boy hesitated only for a moment before carefully placing the droplet into her palm. As it rested there, its light grew brighter, pulsating like the beat of a heart. "This memory holds more power than you realize," Calidora said, her voice soft yet filled with reverence. "It is not only a moment of joy, but a testament to your mother's strength and the love you share. Such bonds are rare, even among mortals, and they possess a power that transcends time itself." The boy looked up at her, his eyes filled with questions. "But why this memory? Why not one where she's happy now or one where she's stronger?" he asked. His voice quivered with uncertainty, his young mind struggling to grasp the enormity of the task he had undertaken. Calidora knelt beside him, her radiant form casting soft shadows across the crystalline riverbank. "Because this memory is not just about happiness," she explained. "It is a moment of unconditional love, a foundation upon which all other moments of strength and hope are built. It is her love for you that has given her the strength to endure. By anchoring her thread to this memory, we give her the power to continue forward, even in the face of hardship." The boy nodded slowly, his brow furrowed as he absorbed her words. He glanced back at the river, its endless flow a stark reminder of how many lives and moments he had glimpsed in his search. "Does everyone have a memory like this?" he asked softly. Calidora's expression grew thoughtful, her gaze shifting toward the shimmering current. "Not everyone," she admitted. "Some threads are woven with more sorrow than joy, more struggle than triumph. But even in the darkest lives, there are moments of light, small, fleeting instances that carry the potential for transformation. It is those moments that sustain the tapestry, that give meaning to the passage of time." She rose gracefully, the glowing droplet still cradled in her palm. "Come," she said, gesturing for him to follow. "The hardest part of our journey is over, but there is still work to be done." Together they ascended from the riverbank, the luminous landscape of the plane of the present dissolving into a swirling vortex of light. The boy clutched her hand tightly, his heart pounding as they were carried upward through the fabric of existence. The sensation was dizzying yet strangely exhilarating, as though he were both weightless and deeply grounded at once. When the light finally subsided, they stood once again in the celestial chamber of the ethereal loom. The vast tapestry stretched before them, its intricate patterns glowing faintly in the dim light. The boy stared in awe, his gaze sweeping over the countless threads that wove together to form the grand design. It was overwhelming, yet he felt a strange sense of peace in its presence, as though he were standing at the heart of the universe itself. Calidora approached the loom with deliberate care, her every movement infused with grace and purpose. She held the droplet aloft, its light casting a golden glow across her serene features. "Now," she said, her voice steady, "we must weave this memory into your mother's thread. It will strengthen the frayed edges, restoring its resilience and ensuring her journey continues." The boy watched as she began her work, her fingers moving with a precision and artistry that took his breath away. The golden thread of his mother's life unraveled slightly, its edges trembling as though alive. Calidora guided the droplet into the weave, her touch gentle yet firm. As the memory merged with the thread, a soft hum filled the chamber, resonating like the chords of an ancient melody. The thread began to glow with renewed brilliance, its once frayed edges now vibrant and strong. The patterns within the tapestry shifted subtly, their design becoming more intricate and harmonious. The boy felt tears prick his eyes as he watched the transformation, his heart swelling with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Will she be okay now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Calidora turned to him, her expression calm yet tinged with a quiet solemnity. "She will see another year," she said. "But remember, time is a gift, not a guarantee. It is not infinite, even for those who wield its power. Cherish every moment you have with her, for they are more precious than you can imagine." The boy nodded, his tears spilling freely now. "Thank you," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you for giving us more time." Calidora's lips curved into a faint smile, her eyes reflecting the depth of her understanding. "It is not I who have given you this gift," she said. "It is your love for your mother and hers for you that has made this possible. Never forget the strength of that bond, for it is the most powerful force in existence." As she stepped back from the loom, the hum of the tapestry began to fade, replaced by a serene silence. The boy felt a sense of completion settle over him, as though a weight he hadn't fully realized he was carrying had been lifted. For the first time in what felt like forever, he allowed himself to hope. Calidora's work on the loom was far from finished. Though the glow of the thread had been restored, the act of weaving a memory into the tapestry required precision and care beyond what the boy could comprehend. The memory he had retrieved from the river was not merely placed into his mother's thread, it had to be interwoven with the countless other threads that connected her to the grand tapestry of existence. Each stitch carried weight, a ripple effect that would subtly influence not only his mother's life, but the lives of those around her. The boy watched in silence, his awe growing as Calidora moved with an artistry that seemed impossible for mortal hands. Her fingers glided over the loom, guiding the glowing threads with a grace that defied the passage of time. Every movement was deliberate, her expression serene, yet focused, as though she were listening to a melody only she could hear. The chamber was quiet, save for the soft hum of the tapestry, which resonated like the low murmur of an eternal choir. "Why does it take so long?" the boy asked, his voice hesitant, as though afraid to interrupt. He had been standing there for what felt like hours, watching as the strands of light shifted and intertwined beneath her skilled hands. Calidora did not look away from her work as she answered. "Because time itself is delicate," she said, her tone patient and measured. "Every thread is connected to countless others. To alter one is to alter many, and each change must be balanced. If I weave this memory too tightly, it may disrupt the harmony of her life. Too loosely, and it will fail to strengthen her thread. The boy frowned, his young mind grappling with the enormity of her words. Does that mean if you make a mistake, it could hurt her? Calidora paused, her hands stilling for a moment, as she turned to meet his gaze. It is not about mistakes, she said gently. It is about intention. The tapestry is not something to be controlled. It is something to be guided. Each thread has its own will, its own purpose, and I must honor that purpose even as I seek to mend it. The boy nodded slowly, though he still didn't fully understand. He looked back at the loom, his gaze drawn to the shimmering patterns that seemed to shift and flow like a living thing. For the first time, he noticed how the threads of his mother's life intertwined with others, friends, family, strangers, all of them connected in ways he had never imagined. Are all lives like this? He asked, his voice soft. Are we all connected? Calidora smiled faintly, her luminous eyes filled with a quiet wisdom. Yes, she said, every thread in this tapestry touches another. Some connections are fleeting, while others are deep and lasting, but all are significant, for it is through these connections that the fabric of existence is made whole. The boy's heart swelled at her words, a newfound sense of wonder filling him. He thought of his mother, of the love and care she had given him even in her weakest moments. He thought of the strangers he had glimpsed in the river of the present, their lives unfolding in ways both ordinary and extraordinary. For the first time, he understood the depth of the world around him, not just as a series of moments, but as a vast, interconnected web of stories and experiences. As Calidora continued her work, the boy's thoughts turned inward. He wondered what his own thread looked like, what moments and choices had shaped it. He wondered how many other lives he had touched without realizing it, and whether his actions now would ripple outward in ways he could not yet see. Will my thread ever fray like hers? He asked, after a long silence. Calidora's hands moved steadily over the loom as she replied. All threads fray in time, she said. It is the nature of life. But what matters is not how long a thread lasts, but the beauty it weaves into the tapestry while it is here. Each thread, no matter how short or long, contributes to the whole. Her words settled over the boy like a blanket, comforting yet sobering. He thought of his mother again, of the memory he had retrieved for her. It was such a simple moment, her singing to him as a baby, but it carried a weight he hadn't understood until now. That single act of love had been enough to shape not only her life, but his as well. The hum of the loom grew louder, its glow intensifying as Calidora completed her work. She stepped back, her hands falling to her sides, as the golden thread of the boy's mother shimmered with renewed strength. The frayed edges were gone, replaced by a vibrant weave that seemed to pulse with life. The memory he had retrieved was now a part of the tapestry, its light shining brightly amidst the intricate patterns. It is done, Calidora said, her voice soft but filled with satisfaction. She turned to the boy, her gaze steady and kind. Your mother's thread is strong once more. She will face challenges still, but this memory will give her the resilience to endure. You have given her a gift greater than time, a reminder of the love that sustains her. The boy's eyes filled with tears, his chest tight with emotion. Thank you, he whispered, his voice trembling. Thank you for helping her. Calidora reached out, her glowing hand resting gently on his shoulder. "It is not I who have helped her," she said. "It is you, your love, your courage. It is these things that have made her thread whole again. Never forget the power you carry within you, for it is through such love that the tapestry endures." The boy nodded, his tears spilling over as he looked back at the loom. The tapestry stretched endlessly before him, its patterns shifting and shimmering like a living thing. He felt a deep sense of peace as he gazed at it, a realization settling over him like the first light of dawn. Time was not something to be feared or controlled. It was a gift, a precious resource to be cherished and shared. The boy stood in silence, gazing at the vibrant thread that now glowed brightly within the tapestry. It was hard to believe that something so small, so fragile, could carry such weight. The love he had shared with his mother, the lullaby she had sung to him as a baby, it had become a light, strong enough to mend the delicate weave of time. Calidora gently guided him away from the loom, her radiant form casting a soft glow over the crystalline chamber. The hum of the tapestry softened, returning to the faint, constant melody that filled the space. It was as though the universe itself was breathing again, restored to balance by the boy's actions and Calidora's care. "You have done more than you realize," Calidora said, her voice like the gentle chiming of bells. She gestured to the vast expanse of the tapestry, where threads of countless lives shimmered in an intricate dance. "Your actions here have rippled through the fabric of time, touching threads far beyond your mother's. The love you carry is not limited to one thread. It flows into the lives of others, shaping their stories in ways you cannot yet see." The boy's gaze followed her gesture, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and humility. He thought of his mother and the way her strength and kindness had shaped him. He wondered if his own actions might one day inspire others, even in the smallest of ways. "Will she know what I did?" he asked quietly. Calidora's expression softened, her eyes glowing with gentle compassion. "She will feel it," she said. "The love you have given her is woven into the thread of her life. It will guide her, even if she does not fully understand its source. That is the beauty of time. It carries with it the echoes of all we hold dear." The boy nodded, his tears drying as a sense of peace settled over him. He looked up at Calidora, his small hand still clutching the frayed scarf that had belonged to his mother. "I'm ready to go back now," he said, his voice steady. "I want to be with her." Calidora inclined her head, a faint smile gracing her lips. With a wave of her hand, the portal to Earth reappeared, its swirling light casting long shadows across the chamber. The boy stared at it for a moment, hesitation flickering across his face. He turned back to Calidora, his gaze filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said, "not just for helping my mother, but for helping me understand everything, time, love, all of it." He paused, his small shoulders straightening as he added, "I won't forget." Calidora knelt before him, her luminous presence radiating warmth and reassurance. "And I will not forget you, brave one," she said. "Your actions here today have reminded me of the beauty and strength that mortals carry. Never doubt the power of love, for it is the force that weaves all things together." The boy smiled, his heart full as he stepped toward the portal. The light enveloped him, its warmth soothing and familiar. He felt the ground beneath his feet shift, the crystalline chamber dissolving into the snow-covered woods where he had knelt beneath the oak tree. The air was crisp and cold, but it no longer felt harsh. Instead, it carried with it the promise of renewal, the beginning of something new. When he opened his eyes fully, he found himself back in the village, the ancient oak standing tall and steady as though it had never changed. The stars still twinkled above, and in the distance he could hear the faint sounds of celebration. He clutched the scarf tighter, his heart swelling with gratitude and determination. As he hurried back to his small cottage, he found his mother asleep by the hearth, her face peaceful in the firelight. The lines of worry and pain seemed softer now, her breathing steady and calm. He knelt beside her, tears of relief spilling over as he whispered, "We'll have another year together, Mama. I promise I'll make it count." Far above, in the crystalline chamber of the ethereal loom, Calidora watched the boy's reunion with his mother through the translucent walls. A faint smile graced her lips, though it was tinged with the weight of her eternal task. Her hands returned to the loom, her fingers moving with renewed purpose as she guided the threads of time. The tapestry shimmered brighter than ever, its patterns shifting to reflect the love and courage the boy had brought into the world. Calidora felt a quiet satisfaction settle over her, a reminder that even in her eternal solitude, her work carried meaning. As the clock struck midnight once more, marking the transition into a new year, she whispered a blessing into the fabric of existence. "May you all find the strength to weave your threads with love and courage," she said softly. "And may the moments you create ripple through time, bringing light to the lives of others." The hum of the tapestry grew faint again, its glow steady and constant as the rhythm of the universe continued. Calidora turned her gaze outward, watching as mortals celebrated the gift of time. Though she could not join them, she felt their joy, their hope, their love, and for the first time in an age, it filled her with peace. And so the tapestry of time continued to unfold, its threads weaving stories of love, loss, and renewal. Among them, the boy's thread and his mother's shone brightly, their bond a testament to the enduring power of connection in a world ever shaped by the hands of time. The Wishing Well of Midnight. In a small village nestled within the shadow of a dense, ancient forest, there lived tales of a mystical well. The villagers called it the Wishing Well of Midnight, a hidden spring said to grant the deepest desires of those brave enough to find it. It was whispered that the well appeared only once a year, as the final seconds of the old year melted into the new. The well's location was no ordinary place. It was said to lie deep within the heart of the forest beyond paths trodden by man. Those who sought it had to listen for its call. A faint melody carried on the wind, a song so soft it could only be heard in the stillness of midnight. Many had tried to find it, but few had returned, and even fewer had spoken of what they encountered. For generations, the legend had been a source of wonder and fear. The elders of the village would share stories of those who had succeeded, lives transformed by the well's power, their wishes granted in ways both miraculous and mysterious. But they also spoke of those who had failed, their hearts too clouded by greed or fear to hear the well's true song. Among those who listened to these tales with rapt attention was a young woman named Elena. She had grown up hearing the stories, her imagination painted with images of the enchanted well and the lives it had changed. But for Elena, the legend was more than a story. It was her last hope. Elena's family had once been prosperous farmers, their fields lush with crops and their home filled with warmth and laughter. But the past year had brought hardship. A drought had withered their crops, leaving the soil cracked and barren. Her father had fallen ill, unable to work the land, and her mother's health was failing from the strain of caring for him. Their savings had dwindled, and the warmth that once filled their home had been replaced by a cold, silent despair. As the new year approached, Elena found herself unable to sleep. She sat by the window of their small, dimly lit cottage, staring out at the forest that loomed on the horizon. The tales of the wishing well filled her mind, their promise of hope a beacon in her darkness. She knew the stories were mere whispers, fragments of a legend passed down through generations. But what if they were true? What if the well could save her family? Her decision was made on the eve of the new year. As the village prepared for its modest celebrations, Elena gathered what little she had, a lantern, a flask of water, and her courage. She wrapped herself in her thickest cloak, its fabric patched and worn but warm, and set off toward the forest. The air was bitterly cold, her breath forming soft clouds as she stepped into the snow-covered woods. The forest was quiet, its towering trees casting long shadows under the moonlight. Elena's footsteps crunched softly in the snow as she walked deeper into the woods, her lantern casting a faint glow that barely pierced the darkness. She listened carefully, her ears straining for the melody that would guide her. And then she heard it, a faint, lilting tune, so delicate it was almost a whisper. It seemed to drift on the air, weaving through the trees like a thread of silver light. Elena's heart quickened as she followed the sound, her steps quickening despite the fear that gnawed at the edges of her resolve. The deeper Elena ventured into the forest, the more the world seemed to shift around her. The trees grew taller and closer together, their gnarled branches forming a canopy that blotted out the stars. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of earth and moss, and the silence became so profound that even her breathing seemed intrusive. But the melody persisted, its haunting beauty guiding her like a distant light. It was unlike anything she had ever heard, a song that seemed to resonate not just in her ears but in her very soul. The notes were gentle, yet insistent, urging her forward even as doubt and fear crept into her mind. "Is this real?" she whispered to herself, her voice trembling in the stillness. She thought of her parents, their faces lined with worry and exhaustion, and clenched her fists. Whether it was real or not, she had to try. She had to believe. As she pressed on, the forest seemed to grow alive around her. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, and the trees seemed to lean closer, their twisted trunks forming shapes that looked almost human. The path beneath her feet became uneven, the snow giving way to patches of exposed roots and frozen earth. She stumbled more than once, her hands scraped and raw as she caught herself on jagged branches. The melody grew louder, filling the air with its ethereal beauty. Elena felt a strange warmth spread through her chest, a sensation that was both comforting and unnerving. It was as though the song was speaking to her, its notes forming words she could not quite understand. She followed it blindly, her lantern flickering as the forest seemed to grow darker around her. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes, It was impossible to tell in the forest's timeless embrace. Elena's legs ached, and her breath came in sharp gasps as she climbed a steep incline. At the top, she paused, her heart pounding as she looked out over a clearing bathed in moonlight. In its center was a small stone well, its surface covered in frost and ancient carvings that glowed faintly in the dim light. Elena approached slowly, her footsteps hesitant, as though she feared the well might disappear if she moved too quickly. The melody was deafening now, its beauty so overwhelming that tears streamed down her cheeks. She knelt before the well, her hands trembling as she traced the carvings with her fingers. The stone was cold and smooth, its surface unmarred by time. She closed her eyes, her heart racing as she whispered her wish. "Please," she said, her voice breaking, "give my family a chance to start again, restore our fields, heal my parents, and bring back the life we've lost." The air grew still, the melody fading into silence as though the forest itself was holding its breath. Elena waited, her hands clutching the edge of the well, her body taut with anticipation. The carvings began to glow brighter, their lights spreading outward in shimmering waves. The celestial calendar. Keepers prepared for their descent, a rare and momentous event. They seldom left the eternal observatory, for their presence in the mortal realm was disruptive to the delicate balance they sought to maintain. But the fractures in the calendar demanded their intervention, and so they gathered at the edge of the observatory, where the stars bled into the vast unknown. Each keeper transformed their essence into a form the mortal world could withstand. Orin became a robed figure cloaked in frost, his presence cold and imposing. Leora took on the guise of a young woman with golden hair and eyes the color of budding leaves. Kyle became a warrior, wreathed in fire, his strength palpable even in his muted form. Maris appeared as an elder, wrapped in robes the color of autumn, her amber gaze calm and wise. Together they stepped through the veil that separated their realm from the world below. The transition was disorienting, even for them. The mortal world was dense and heavy, its air thick with emotions and sensations that the keepers seldom encountered. They arrived in a quiet village nestled in the shadow of snow-capped mountains, its streets silent under a blanket of freshly fallen snow. The hour was late, and the world seemed to hold its breath as the new year approached. The keepers observed the village in silence, their gazes sweeping over its modest homes and frozen fields. The signs of imbalance were clear. The crops lay dormant under unnatural frost, the rivers were stagnant, and the air was heavy with despair. The villagers had gathered in the town square, their faces pale and weary as they huddled around a small fire. There was no celebration, no joy, only a quiet resignation that mirrored the cracks in the calendar above. "It begins here," Orin said, his voice low and steady. "We must restore their belief, or all will be lost." Leora stepped forward, her golden form glowing faintly. "We cannot force them to hope," she said, "but we can remind them. We can show them the beauty they have forgotten." Kyle nodded, his fiery presence flickering like embers. "Let us awaken their hearts," he said. "Let them feel the warmth of renewal, the promise of a brighter tomorrow." The keepers dispersed, each taking a different path through the village. Their mission was clear: to guide the villagers back to the cycles of time, to rekindle the hope that had been buried beneath their despair. Orin approached the eldest of the villagers, a man named Henrik, who had once been a farmer of great renown. Henrik sat alone near the edge of the square, his gaze distant, as he stared into the dying embers of the fire. His hands were weathered and cracked, his shoulders slumped under the weight of years of toil. "You carry the burden of time," Orin said, his voice soft yet firm. "But do you not see the strength it has given you?" Henrik looked up, his eyes narrowing at the sight of the robed figure. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "And what would you know of my burdens?" Orin knelt beside him, his frost-covered cloak shimmering in the firelight. "I am a keeper of time," he said simply, "and I know that your burdens are not yours alone. The years you have lived, the fields you have tended, they are part of a greater cycle. Your strength lies not in what you have lost, but in what you have endured." Henrik frowned, his weathered hands clenching into fists. "What use is strength if it leads only to more loss?" he muttered. Orin reached out, his hand brushing the frost-covered ground. Where his fingers touched, the frost melted, revealing a patch of green beneath the snow. "Strength leads to renewal," he said. "Even in the harshest winters, the seeds of spring lie dormant, waiting to awaken. You are a part of that cycle, Henrik. Your time is not yet done." Henrik stared at the patch of green, his expression softening as the truth of Orin's words began to take root in his heart. Leora, meanwhile, found herself drawn to a group of children playing in the snow. Their laughter was faint, their games half-hearted, as though the weight of the village's despair had sapped their joy. She knelt beside them, her golden presence glowing like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Why do you not celebrate the new year?" she asked, her voice gentle. One of the children, a boy named Thomas, looked up at her with wide eyes. "There is nothing to celebrate," he said. "Our fields are empty, and my papa says the river is dry. How can we hope for a new year when the old one has taken everything?" Leora smiled, her golden eyes filled with warmth. "The new year is not a promise of what will come," she said. "It is a reminder of what can be. Even the smallest seed holds the potential to become a mighty tree, and even the smallest hope can grow into something extraordinary." She reached into the snow, her hand glowing as she cupped a handful of frost. When she opened her hand, the frost had transformed into a small flower, its petals shimmering like sunlight on water. The children gasped in wonder, their laughter ringing out as they reached for the flower. As the keepers worked, the energy of the village began to shift. The frost on the fields melted, revealing the first signs of life beneath the snow. The river's waters began to flow again, their currents carrying the promise of renewal. And the villagers, once burdened by despair, found themselves filled with a newfound hope. The cracks in the celestial calendar began to fade, their dark energy dissipating as the flow of time was restored. The keepers returned to the observatory, their forms glowing brighter than before, as they gathered around the calendar. Its surface shone with a brilliance that illuminated the entire chamber, its patterns flowing smoothly once more. "The balance has been restored," Maris said, her voice calm and steady. "The new year will bring renewal, as it always has." The others nodded, their collective light radiating through the observatory. Though their work was done, they knew the cycle would continue, and their vigilance would never waver. As the first light of the new year broke over the horizon, the village awoke to a world transformed. The frost had melted, the fields glowed with promise, and the river sparkled as it flowed freely once more. The villagers gathered in the square, their faces alight with wonder and gratitude. They did not know the keepers had intervened, but they felt the shift in their hearts, the rekindling of a hope they thought they had lost. In the eternal observatory, the keepers watched in silence, their forms blending with the starlight. They had fulfilled their duty, ensuring the passage of time remained unbroken. And though they would never be seen or known by those they had helped, their work was etched into the fabric of the world, a reminder of the eternal cycles that bound all things together,